So if folks don't want to be recorded, feel free to go off camera if you'd like. But thank you for joining the final Eco Team meeting of the year. I do see some familiar faces, maybe some faces or names that I don't recognize. We always start the meetings with a quick round of introductions. Apologies if you hate that kind of thing, but it's nice to know who's here. Just get a sense of how we're reaching folks and what is bringing folks to this meeting space. So I'll kick it off. My name is Christian Murphy, pronouns he, him. I'm the Ecology and Education Manager at the Bronx River Alliance. I help to organize and run the Eco Team meetings and the Eco Team. I've been at the Bronx River Alliance for 6.5 years at this point, almost 7 years. And my main role is to organize our data collection and our communication of water quality and ecological data to our stakeholders to try to get us to fix the Bronx River and make it healthier and more habitable and more accessible and more wonderful overall for everybody. Yeah, I'll stop there and I'll kick it over to Juvella.
Hello, my name is Juvella. Can you hear me? I don't know. Okay. Juvella Tolentino, she, her. I'm the Ecology Fellow at the Bronx River Alliance. I work with Christian to assist them with whatever he needs in the ecology department. And I will be taking notes and keeping track of the time. I will kick it over to Sarah.
Is there another Sarah or is it me? Maybe
I
it's
think it's
me.
you. I think
Okay.
it's you. Yeah.
Multiple, so I'm like, I'm Sarah Donatich. I'm with New York City Parks. I'm the hydrologist and also co-project manager with Clara Holmes, who I'll kick it to next for the Bronx River Dam Removal Project with the Army Corps. Clara, do you want to go?
Yes, buddy. I'm Clara Holmes. My camera is not functioning or it's super dark, so apologies that I can't even come on to say hello to everybody. I'm Clara Holmes with New York City Parks. I'm a plant ecologist, but also manage a variety of restoration projects in the city and helping Sarah out with our Bronx Dam project. And with that, I'll pass it to Becca Swadek.
Hi, Becca Swadek, she, her. I'm work with New York City Parks and Clara and Sarah and Liam, who I'll pass it to next. And I'm also co-chair for the Eco Team. And yeah, also sorry, not on camera tonight. But Liam, would you like to go?
Hey everybody, I'm Liam Ford. I'll continue the New York City Parks train here. I'm a wetlands project coordinator with Parks, working primarily with the Fishway at the 182nd Street Dam, but also other projects as well. I'm fairly new here, so I've been here for about 2 months, but excited to be a part of this team and meeting with everybody. And I will pass over to Megan.
Hi, everybody. I'm clearly new here. Megan, she, her. I am an artist, but I am also a fellow with the Beaver Institute. So I'm here for looking to get involved, thinking about New York waterways, but also for some perhaps beaver collaboration. I think Adam, our president, has reached out maybe, but since I'm New York based, I'm in Brooklyn. Bronx is easy to get to for me. Thinking about to get more involved and see what we can do together potentially. And I will pass it to Carolyn.
Oh, hi, I'm Carolyn McLaughlin. I'm a board member of the Bronx River Alliance, and I love to attend the Eco Team meetings. And this afternoon, I did a little bit of cross-country skiing right beside the river. So that was great. And I'll pass it to Adam.
Hi, everyone. I am Adam Jadho, he, him. I'm a postdoc at the American Museum of Natural History's Center for Biodiversity and Conservation. I'm helping do some research in a bunch of different ways around the city regarding fishing and American eels, and some of our research sites are on the Bronx River, and we're also going to try and do some work around seeing whether carp are eating eels translocated above the dam at the river, a bunch of stuff. But I will pass it to my co-conspirator, Anna Porskansky, who's the director of CBC.
Hi, everyone. Anna Porzakanski. Great to meet some new people. I will just say New York City Parks is like infinite. I keep meeting new people all the time. It's so exciting. I'm the director of the Center for Biodiversity and Conservation at the American Museum of Natural History. And we have been delighted to be collaborating with Christian and others at Bronx River Alliance the last couple months to enhance water quality sampling in the river and hope to do more.
David.
Sorry, I have to. Daniel, did he go already?
I don't think he did.
I did not. My name is Daniel Rennell, he, him. I'm Deputy Director here at the Bronx River Alliance, and work closely with Christian and others. I will, let's see. Christian, can you pass it for me? I'm having trouble seeing who did go.
I don't think David has gone. So David, if you're there.
Hey everyone, yes, I'm here. Sorry I can't join you all on camera right now. I'm heading home myself, so sorry if there's some background noise. I'm David Abreu. I'm the clean water advocate at Save the Sound, but also one of the co-chairs on the Bronx River Ecology Team. So yeah, glad to be with you all tonight. Good to see some new faces, and hello to those returning. And Christian, if I can ask you to also pass it to someone.
Absolutely. Thank you, David, for making time while you're in on your commute. Ronald, if you're there. And if Ronald is not able to come off mute right now, then Jim.
Hi, I'm Jim Katz. I'm with the Hudson River Estuary Program at the DEC. I'm just here to listen in on the Bronx River dam removal presentation. So thanks for having me. I handle aquatic barrier mitigation work. So.
Yeah, I think we've been on calls in the past, probably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for being here. Jude, I know you just joined. We're doing a quick round of introductions. If you'd like to come off mute and just say your name and maybe how you found the meeting.
Hey, how you doing? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yes. I'm just past volunteer. I've been in a few events, so I'm just a community member. Hailing away from Brooklyn, so I've gone up and volunteered in the past.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I think last but not least is one of our guest presenters, and I do apologize if I mispronounce your name, but Aishwarya.
Yeah, you got that right. Hi everyone, I'm Aishwarya Shankar. I'm an instructional assistant professor at University of Florida, and I'm a collaborator with Sarah and Clara and Becca and Jim on the Visualizing Dam Removals project, and I'm very excited to talk to you, all of you today. Is Christian stuck?
Yeah, did we lose him?
Okay, there was an eerie silence, so I was.
I think he. Oh no.
Sorry, I was trying to open my slides and my computer froze. And then I couldn't unmute to say that I was frozen. This might be a theme for tonight, is me getting stuck. But if there's a silence, just know that I'm trying. All right, I'm going to share my slides and hope the computer doesn't crash. I really abused this laptop, so I asked for this, to be honest with you. Okay. If at any point you stop being able to see the screen properly, please let me know. Thank you for joining the last meeting of the year. Just some quick housekeeping. This has never really been an issue, but just keep yourself on mute until you're ready to speak. You can use the hand raise feature or type in the chat. There's a few of us on staff who can answer comments that are put in the chat directly. But also if you really have a burning question or comment, I don't mind being interrupted, so feel free to do that as well. Please be courteous and respectful. We're always here to share ideas and share our curiosity and interest in the Bronx River and ecology in general. And I think that's why we're all here today. I did email out the agenda, but just really quickly, we've gone through a round of introductions. We're going to go into a really exciting Bronx River Dam removal study. This kind of look at how we can communicate the work and sort of analysis that's been done on some of the Bronx's dams. And we're excited to get into that a little bit. We're going to get into our collaboration with the American Museum of Natural History, provide some updates there. Also, an update on the Bronxville Mount Vernon sewer issue, which, if you have not heard, is quite the talk of the town in that part of the watershed. So we're going to get into that a little bit as well. A quick review of the drought and water quality conditions that we experienced this year, and then some wildlife updates towards the end of the meeting, and then some talk back for what we can look at for next year. Typically, the December meeting is usually a kind of review of the year overall, but because there is just so much data and information to be talking about right now, I think we're going to shift that to the March meeting instead. So if you're looking for the review of what we were doing, you will hear that in the first quarter next year. We already went through our icebreaker. So actually at this point, I'm going to stop sharing and I will pass it over to Aishwarya and the Parks team. So you have the floor.
Thanks, Christian. Should I just go into it or should we wait? Does Becca want to speak?
Yeah, I can
Yes.
give a really quick intro to this. And also this, I just want to acknowledge too, this is like a project that we're kind of like, I wouldn't say secretly introducing to the eco team, but like we have not been talking about this publicly before. So you guys are kind of getting a cool preview of a dam removal project that we've been, well, I guess two dam removal projects in general, but we're going to focus on one primarily for this presentation with the Army Corps. And so it's really exciting that we've been able to do this. I will give like a sad primer though, and say the project overall is on pause due to federal funding stuff, which is a not great thing, but we are going to keep moving this project forward on our end. And the two projects that we're looking at are in the zoo and the botanical garden most critically. And so, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, who literally has the word engineering in their name and are not necessarily the what you would think of as a entity to do a really like nice landscape project in an institution like that. So we've partnered with the University of Florida and others to really kind of reimagine what that could look like, particularly given the sense of place that those dams create and as a water feature for both of those institutions. So we're really grateful to work with Aishwarya and her team here on this project to kind of imagine what that could look like. I will also just give the kind of early caveat that this project is like not even started design yet. It's something that we're moving forward with. So these are things that we're doing early on to help us. But, when the project moves forward, we'll go through like a normal design review process and all of that stuff with the community. So this is just kind of like a first sneak peek preview to kind of what we're thinking of and wanted to bring you guys along. I don't know if Sarah or Clara or others have anything they wanted to add, but I just kind of wanted to give that little primer, but thanks.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think I'll just let Ashwarya take it. Thanks.
Awesome. I need permission to be able to share my screen.
You should have permission now.
Okay, great. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
And you are seeing the presentation, right? And not my notes.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to share this really fun collaboration with you today. I will be talking to you about this collaboration between University of Florida and the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. The project is entitled Visualizing Dam Removals in the Bronx River in New York City. This collaboration is specifically with students in the design communication courses at the Department of Landscape Architecture here at University of Florida. To give you a brief intro about who I am, I'm a trained landscape architect and architect with experience both in India and in the US, and my research expertise largely is within design communications, decolonial studies, water equity, climate adaptation, and resilience. And before coming to UF, I was a researcher with the Water Resources Institute. So that's where I met my collaborators along with Jim from the DEC. Um, I would like to start by acknowledging the various individuals and group of people who have contributed to this project, specifically my collaborators at NYC Parks, Jamie Ong, who's not at Parks anymore, Clara Holmes, and Sarah Donatich. This pedagogical and research undertaking is funded by the New York State Water Resources Institute at Cornell University. Also, shout out to the Bronx River Alliance, Victoria Toro, who helped us with site visit support with canoeing with our students. So I'm going to just dive in by, let's begin by understanding what this project is. You have partnered with NYC Parks to bridge design communication needs with education and training for landscape architecture design students. So the course names that were involved in this project are Design Communication 2 and Advanced Design Communications. It was a class that consisted of Bachelor of Landscape Architecture sophomore and juniors, combined with first and second year Master of Landscape Architecture students. We began first by investigating the relationship between dam removals and landscape architecture. UF students learned about and contributed to a real world urban dam removal project in the Bronx Zoo and in the New York Botanical Gardens. So the double dams and the stone mill dam. The students were asked to creatively engage with the site and to interpret landscape imaginaries in novel ways by blending together art and storytelling. I want to note that this is a communications course and it's not a design studio. So the focus is not on the design ideas. Instead, the discussion is centered around experimental storytelling and a diversity of visual languages that were eventually categorized into themes. I also want to acknowledge that, dam removal projects require professionals from a variety of disciplines. So our focus on the conversation is going to be on the lens of visualization in landscape architecture. So the student assignments and the coursework for the semester was centered around various methods of creative production. We began with exploring the existing conditions through two-dimensional drawing methods, which was cartography, base mapping. Then we explored the existing conditions through three-dimensional drawing, like digital modeling and also analog model making and digital fabrication. And then the students had their first physical encounter with the site visit. And then once they had a grasp on the existing conditions, they began articulating these imaginary scenarios through parametric design and explorations on the river table, which finally helped them manifest their visioning and storytelling through renders and AI-enhanced visualization. So a typical design drawing process begins with site analysis, which is 2D drawing methods, like I mentioned earlier, articulating imaginaries, which is modeling, and visualization in the form of rendering. So each of these, at each stage of design drawing, the students learn to work with new tools of creative production, which involve, ranging from ArcGIS to AutoCAD, Land Effects, which is a planting plan software, digital fabrication, artificial intelligence. And all of this was kind of brought together in the form through analog methods, meaning drawing by hand or making models by hand. This was the basis of engaging with these digital tools. The students were also encouraged to engage in critical thinking when it came to using these tools. There was a heavy emphasis on post-processing at every stage. So for example, if the students produced a map on ArcGIS, they were not allowed to submit it as a product as it is. They were asked to make the map legible by using post-processing softwares like Photoshop, Illustrator, and hybrid digital analog modes to make sense of the drawing that was generated digitally. So this involved thinking critically about using the drawing tools in narrative and storytelling. And then the students had their place-based physical encounters with the site visit in April in 2025. This was in their spring semester. The students also went canoeing on a portion of the Bronx River, thanks to the Bronx River Alliance. The physical engagement helped students rethink their understanding of the place, and it provided new ways of like spatially understanding it as opposed to, working with it remotely like they were for the most of the semester. So because this is not a design studio, the course was structured around some landscape imaginary scenarios around which they had to communicate the visualization of the dam removals. The scenario building involved a lot of hybrid experimentation on parametric design using Rhino, Grasshopper, Landkit, and in using the M River table to better articulate their visualization. So there was both both static and dynamic modes of thinking and communicating the landscape of the dams and the river around it. So let's look at some student work samples. Um, on average, in both courses, the students had roughly 5 assignments. I'm going to show you products from each assignment. What you're looking at on the right is a rendering of a post-dam removal scenario. The student was really inspired by the canoeing trip, and he wanted to represent the view that depicted his experience there. This is a cartography exercise. The student is looking at various levels of migration that occur on the site, ranging from people to endangered species like the eel and alewife. This student wanted to understand the various scales of engagement that this place experiences, from the scale of the site to a global scale. Here, the student did a context study to look at the site of the Bronx Zoo double dam from a closer view and to get a sense of what is its spatial character and what is surrounding the site. Continuing with the context studies, the student is looking at a speculation of the structure of the dams and what are the various forces of landscape that are affected by it. Here, another student is looking at parametric design software testing on Landkit. These analyses look at the relationship between water and topography to understand catchment areas and flows of water and how to represent and depict that. Here's an interesting example of a more analog mode of drawing and modeling where the student was thinking about the landscape imaginary involving beaver dams. I heard there was someone working on beavers, so I'm very curious about your thoughts. The student tested the imaginary scenario on an M River table. This exercise was an interdisciplinary one that was done in collaboration with Dr. Jules Bruck and Dr. Pete Adams from the Geomorphology Lab here at UF. And finally, we arrive at the image products. So here you see a before and after scene of the dam removals. The left-hand side is the existing conditions and the right-hand side is the landscape imaginary. Here is another view of the existing condition, and here is the after. So the image was a hybrid of 3D modeling, AI-enhanced visualization in mid-journey and post-processing. This is another visual style of rendering. So the student was exploring the landscape imaginary that was more in abstraction, and it involved a fluctuating post-dam removal landscape that changed over time. Another view of that same idea that involved hybrid methods of drawing. So now let's look at a synthesis of all this student work. What does it mean to synthesize all this diversity of visual languages, and what was the outcome of these courses? So I created a landscape design communication products matrix that brings together the processes of drawing in the site analysis, the landscape imaginaries articulation, and the visualization stages. Each method of creative production, like cartography, context study, 3D modeling, was divided into various scales and various types of drawings. And this is vertically organized into themes of scenarios that anchored the students' design communication throughout the semester. So let's say you want to look at a fabricated model from scenario 2, or you want to see a site plan from scenario 3, or you want to see a design render from scenario 4. The matrix helps navigate through the variety of visual products created by the students in the course. So based on the synthesis of student works, I'm going to show you I'm in the process of creating some synthesis-based drawings that will assist the various stakeholders of the site in broadening conversations around what does it mean to remove a dam on the Bronx River. I'm working with a research assistant on creating these drawings, and I'm showing you some of the products. There are some base plans that helped us understand both the dam sites as a whole, because both the design communication courses engaged with a different dam. So this was the first time we brought the two dam sites together in one drawing. We did an accessibility diagram to look at all the various modes of connectivity to the dam sites. We looked at pedestrian access, bike access, public transport, buses, and vehicular access. And through this drawing, we understood that there was a lack of crosswalks and sidewalks, causing longer routes from zones 1 and 2 that you see above to the double dams. The most efficient way to get to both the sites of the dams is by car, with biking being the next most efficient. And most walking and biking routes are similar within both the botanical gardens and the Bronx Zoo. The drawings also helped us look at the site's opportunities and constraints. So if we look at public connectivity and access, a constraint being that there is low public accessibility and connectivity to the dam removal sites. Increasing connectivity with more trail systems, bike systems, and bus stops will improve that accessibility. Additionally, the creation of new viewpoints supported by extended or additional trail systems will increase visual and physical access to the river itself. Another constraint in terms of the balance between ecological use and human use is that the dams act as these seasonal waterfalls. That's a beloved public artifact. And at the same time, they are man-made structures with a fixed life and have consequences to urban flooding and ecosystem connectivity, including fish passage. That poses an opportunity for creative design solutions that can retain the spatial character of the waterfall, while at the same time allowing for ecological restoration and climate adaptive design. Um, Removing the dams may lower the levels of the water significantly, which will transform that waterfall character of the dams. But lowered water levels will expose new portions of the floodplain, and this additional space can inhabit new seasonal trail systems, additional view sheds, and new land for planting and native vegetation. So there's additional capacity for providing multiple alternative channels for flowing water, to cater to fish passage, ecological connectivity, human use, recreation, and sound barriers. So doing an exercise of drawing the sites once again helped us depict some of those opportunities and constraints. You can see here the steep terrain at the Stone Mill Dam is a constraint, but there are a lot of opportunities for public access. You can also see your existing view sheds, and the bathymetry contours that are very light right now indicate the amount of newly available floodplains. Similarly, at the double dam site, you can see the character of the dams with an island in the middle, and how the Bronx River is more serpentine-like here. That offers opportunities for more floodplain land available for native planting and public access through seasonal trails. So I have here some general conclusions from this exercise so far. The community of inquiry, which are the students and academia, through research and creative production, is engaging with a real-world project to learn from the community of practice about the magnitude of responsibility associated with manifesting public projects. Artistic explorations reveal new ways of looking at existing conditions and imagining future scenarios. Student work is not restricted by the rigid constraints of the real world, so academic freedom creates a space for reflective and visionary thinking. Practitioners may not always have the capacity or resources for artistic experimentation, so creating landscape imaginaries is definitely a luxury. And climate change adaptation research and practice benefits from a multiplicity of perspectives to be able to arrive at balanced, resilient, and context appropriate sustainable solutions. In terms of next steps, I will be submitting a report of all of this academic and practical collaboration, and I'm hoping to have more future prospects with other dam removal sites in New York State. That's it. Thank you. Do you have any questions? I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I'll open up the floor to anybody else. And I certainly have some thoughts and curiosities as well. Folks, feel free to come off mute and ask questions of the team. Anna.
Hi, thanks so much. Oh,
Hi.
sure. I was wondering, is this kind of exploration, first of all, really cool? Thank you. And secondly, is this kind of exploration typically, in your experience, something that feeds into a planning process then for removal? And if so, how? Like, have you experienced such a thing in other cases? Can you tell us a little bit about how it would connect with other steps in the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think of a typical, design project, or even in this case, a dam removal project, which is a landscape architecture project too, along with other collaborators, um, while you are in that conceptual stage of making a lot of decisions and looking at the data and analyzing the site, an exercise like this helps broaden our thinking and our understanding of the place. It informs us better to look at the same problem through multiple perspectives, which is always an advantage. And there's also an advantage to speak to other disciplines through various modes of, because there's a variety of visual language available here. So, when you want to make a point about a specific aspect about the site, you can find something within this visual language to communicate your point. And some like a picture speaks louder than words a lot of times. So interdisciplinary collaboration has the potential to be smoother. And even if you imagine some sort of community engaged process later on, a lot of these images can be very powerful in communicating to people that, removing dams is an asset. It's going to be beneficial to all. And when people have an idea of what it looks like, they are less consumed by their imagination and fears around these things.
Thank you so much. If there are no other questions, I have a follow-up. May I ask?
Yeah, of course, please do.
So did you speak to residents? I wasn't clear about that part.
So no, we've not had any community engagement component to this. Our main point of contact has been New York City Parks and Rec, and a little bit of speakers. Like in my acknowledgements, I wanted to mention Laura Wildman from Save the Sound. And we had a number of reviewers from New York City Parks who looked at our student work as well. We had members from the Water Resources Institute who critiqued some of the student work. So that's been the level of engagement. It's mostly with stakeholders or people in the field, not really a community. So I think this is the first time we've actually opened it up beyond our own circles of discussion.
I had a question as well, if no one else has one. So towards the end of the presentation, you had talked about reconnecting the river to its like floodplain at both sites. Can you talk a little bit more about how you would do that, or like what that looks like?
So like the focus is not really on the design, but it was more about imagining what the reconnection would look like, right? So when you're looking at some of the opportunities and constraints involved with a project like this, when I was doing this project with the students, when we imagined, what is a scenario when the dam is not there anymore? What's going to happen to all the water levels? When the water levels go down, you're going to have more of the banks of the riverside available in a seasonal capacity. And that's going to present new opportunities for, either nature-based solutions or native plantings or extended trail systems, or more view sheds and viewpoints or more public connectivity even. So if you, let's say are in a position where you have to discuss this idea with a community member who is worried that the river is no longer going to be a river or something like that when the dam is going to be removed. I think communicating that the river still remains the same. It's just that the level of value that we get, landscape values, and ecological values, and even educational awareness and climate change adaptation values goes up, which presents a lot more opportunities for engagement with the river and with the site.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the talk. It's very wonderful. I was just curious. It seems like there was a heavy visual components that are run throughout the project, and I was just curious. It seems like there's a lot of different processes, and I'm assuming a lot of them are new to the students as well, and how you sort of navigate throughout the semester, kind of introduce them to them new processes and mediums, and kind of navigate which they should engage with to best represent. And also there's like a 3D modeling component as well, and whether or not it seems like there's a lot of tools in the toolkit, and how do you navigate giving them instructions for each one, whether or not if you present them all at the beginning and then tell them that, okay, research and then choose which one to go with, or you gradually kind of tease it out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's like the ultimate instructor conundrum, right? So the course was structured around assignments, and in each assignment, the students explored a new aspect of the site or a new way of looking at it. And every tool that came with exploring that afforded that. So, when you're looking at GIS mapping, that's going to allow you this multi-scalar view, primarily in plan view. But it offers this global, at the same time, global and site level connection within that plan view. And with a large, like you also get to engage with a large amount of data. And then when you go to something like 3D modeling, you are able to more closely engage with the spatial character of the site. So you're looking at the site again in a very different way. You're looking at the site in a slightly more immersive way, and you're able to really understand what are the different components that make up the space of these dams, and then what is it to imagine when the dam is removed. And then in that final stage of visualization and rendering, when they were creating that final image of the existing conditions and post-intervention, that was where that whole idea of narrative and storytelling comes in, where they had to think through all their learnings and different ways of looking at the site and make it into a story. And that's a really important part of landscape architecture education, is to be able to pitch your design ideas, to be able to tell a story of how you are going to design or how you engage with the site. And that was mostly the part of that training. And of course, along with various, critical and ethical ways of thinking through tools, especially with AI and stuff, like how do you have, proper citations? How do you ethically engage with it? What is the prompting process? That kind of stuff. And of course, there was a heavy post-processing and hand drawing and analog modes of production that help the students not get consumed by the digital tools, and to maintain autonomy over how they are thinking through this story.
All right, we have time for a few more questions if anyone wants to ask. Anna.
I always have a lot of questions, sorry. And this may not be a question for you, Aishwarya, but maybe for your colleagues in parks. What role would the Bronx Zoo and the New York Botanical Garden play here?
A big one.
Yeah.
So, and Clara and Sarah, feel free to add to this, but basically, Parks is the landowner. And we're coming at this from a very, ecological perspective, hydraulic perspective, safety perspective, owner of the infrastructure that we don't want perspective. But the zoo and the botanical garden have long-term leases on the property, as cultural institutions, and have for the botanical garden for sure over 100 years, and I believe the zoo as well. And so they are land management partners with us, and have very robust programming and engagement, and really relationships with these structures, but also with the river as well. And something that we definitely can't discount. We've gone through a lot of engagement with them throughout the course of even getting this project started, and fundraised for and everything. But they are critical members of our project team, and making sure that the community, visitors and constituents are all aware, but also understand just how critically important this project is. They're absolutely imperative to bring along in this process. So
Thanks.
And so I was just going to also mention, since I just reiterate that this will go through a normal public design process, and so we're just in the infancy stages of the. Well, I guess we're beyond the infancy stages. We're getting to like toddler. We're starting to move, but we're hoping to move a little bit faster. So we're getting there on this, but we'll go through a full public review process, as this advances.
Can I ask a quick burning question? What's the scale of funding that something that this requires? I have like no idea. How many millions of dollars? Like what is
Tens.
tens? Okay.
Yeah. We're in this with a cost share with the Army Corps. It is through their Hudson Raritan Estuary Restoration Program. Has historically been a long running project. Have worked with them on many restoration projects throughout the past decades, as has National Park Service, to reconstruct the Marsh Islands. That was through the Marsh Islands in Jamaica Bay. That was through the exact same program, and they front roughly 75% of the bill, and we front roughly 25% of the bill. There's a couple of things that they won't necessarily pay for, but it definitely behooves us from a financial perspective to work with them, and bring their engineering expertise on having done these projects nationwide. So we're really grateful for their partnership as practitioners from this perspective too.
All right. At this point, we got to keep pushing, but I want to thank you and the team, all of you at Parks and Ashwarya and the students for putting together this amazing work. Just to say, like a big part of the dam removal conversation has been convincing people that it's important, right? And so I think this is a major component both here in the city, like we've seen this in the city as well as in Westchester County, that people love the waterfalls, they love the way these things look, and they feel offended when we talk about removing these structures, right? And so how do we convince folks that this is also a beautiful thing to do, and that the result is also beautiful, right? And we can all enjoy this, and it's also important. So I think this is a really critical part of that process, to visualize and make other people aware how the landscape retains its beauty despite this big change. So excited to see where this goes. Really looking forward to more updates on this project. Thank you. All right, really, really quick. I glossed over a couple of people during introductions, and I'm really sorry for doing that. RJ Hawkins, who's on the team right now, is a partner of ours, as well as Dee, who has been to some meetings in the past, and Rewa. Just wanted to welcome you to the space. Glad that you're here. And we're gonna keep it moving if I find my slides. Sorry that my computer is still chugging along today. Come on, you can do this. Okay. I don't know what the screen looks like for you all. It looks a little crazy for me.
Still look black to me. Now it's coming.
This poor laptop. All right, I'll start talking before the screen pops up to save some time. So I wanted to go into a review of the work that we were doing with you, Anna, actually, um, to look at more enhanced water quality monitoring on the river. So a quick rundown for folks who were not here for the September meeting. The museum reached out to us to do a collaboration because they had some funding available to support local organizations like ours, the Bronx River Alliance. And we aligned on doing more enhanced fecal bacteria monitoring on the river and emphasized that with the cadence of the sampling that we do currently, we miss quite a bit of information because we only go out every 2 weeks. And so, in between 2 weeks, a lot of things can happen. And we decided to actually go out every single day for approximately 27 straight days. I still can't believe we actually accomplished that. But with Anna's support, we were out on weekends. We, I think, only missed 1 or 2 days in that section. And so we have a near continuous set of data for the month of September, which is really, really remarkable. And, I think it provided us with a lot of information that we didn't already know. Yeah, so 27 days of data collection. What we're looking at here is the geometric mean of the water quality. So this is the amount of fecal bacteria at each of these sites. A geometric mean is kind of like an averaging system. It kind of takes into account outliers, so numbers that are really, really high and really, really low. And so the result that you get is kind of more informative than just a straight average, because it tells you a little bit more about sort of how the data trends. So what we see here is kind of the means at the different sites and how they're kind of different from each other. Interestingly enough, that the Bronx Zoo Mitsubishi Riverwalk location, which is just upstream of the double dams in the zoo, had the highest bacteria readings pretty consistently this year. I want to point out that this is very close to the EPA's primary contact threshold. And some of you might be thinking, well, no, it's not really that close. Those numbers are still well above it. And they are. But on the Bronx River, we are used to seeing bacteria levels that are in the thousands and sometimes even the tens of thousands. So even seeing numbers that are below 200, are a welcome sign for us because we are used to seeing numbers that are much, much more severe than what we're seeing here. So what you see is that actually some of these sites are very close to or are below that threshold. And this threshold has been used for a while. I think the number has changed slightly in recent years, but it indicates whether or not the river is safe for swimming in or consuming wildlife that you have caught from the river. So the closer that we get to that red line is the better the overall river's health is. And at some of these sites, what you can see is that we're actually getting close to very safe conditions a lot of the time, or some of the time, right? This, I think, is really interesting. On the left is the stream gauge at the New York Botanical Gardens. This is maintained by the USGS. And so what this gauge provides us is a list of continuous parameters, oxygen, pH, the gauge height, all great stuff that indicate water quality. And then on the right is the bacteria levels from Shoelace Park. So it's kind of just north, maybe about 1.5 miles north of where the gauge is actually located. And what's interesting is that the gauge height and the bacteria levels really closely mirror each other. And we didn't know this before we did this collaboration. So we've never actually seen daily levels in the river of bacteria. One of the reasons why this is so exciting for us is because we can't always tell when bacteria levels are unsafe. We have a good idea, and we get a lot of information from New York City when they put out water body advisories. But we didn't actually know how quickly the bacteria in the river actually gets flushed out of the river system. Folks who are familiar with our paddling program probably know that we often cancel our canoe paddles out of an abundance of caution because we don't want folks to be, near water that could potentially, be gross. But this is really interesting information because that number, that big spike on September 7th, drops really quickly. Basically, by the following day, it had dropped. We didn't know that those numbers fell so quickly. We actually assumed that they remained elevated for a period of time after a heavy rainfall. And so this tells us a lot of information about how the river responds to these kinds of weather-related influences. And I think that's really interesting. You can see a couple of other bumps on the graph on the right. Those do seem to kind of mirror a little bit some of what we're seeing on the stream gauge graph as well. So a lot of interesting information there. Still some questions, obviously, that I have, but this does tell us a lot of information that we didn't know before. So, I was a little bit mind blown to see this, to be honest with you. Anna or Juvella, I don't know if you want to come off and say anything else as, collaborators in the project.
Were you going to talk about what we hope to do next, or?
Yes, I was.
Then I'll let you continue.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot more that we could dive into. And so we're hoping to explore new collaborative projects in the future. In spring of 2026, we will, I think, still have the museum support. And so we're imagining what we can do with that support. If that includes the same sites we were already looking at, are we looking at maybe getting some sites from Westchester County and seeing how the river responds in that part of the watershed where it's not under a CSO system, but it's under a municipal separate storm sewer system, which are supposed to respond a little differently. One of the things that we'd floated, we're not really sure if we're going to commit to this, but instead of doing every single day, picking a site and maybe taking water quality samples every single hour and seeing how bacteria levels change during a day, from sunrise to sunset, or the beginning of the workday to the end of the workday, but seeing an even finer detail analysis of these bacteria levels in the river. Again, information that we've never known before. That would tell us a lot about how the river responds to influxes of pollution from our sewer systems. And of course, the Bronx River Long-Term Control Plan is focused on reducing combined sewer overflow volume to the river. So directing a lot of that sewage away from this water body, which should make it safer and cleaner. So how can we be doing or designing research projects that would inform some of those policy changes and designs for the LTCP? And maybe a conversation with our agency folks and friends at the DEP and other agencies. So Anna, any thoughts?
No, it's been a real pleasure to collaborate with you all. And I think we had a few other thoughts about the work in the spring. One of them was potentially collaborating with a different lab that had a different set of accreditations. And I don't know if the colleague from Save the Sound is still here and if those conversations are happening, but it'd be great to chat. We are also interested in how rain in Westchester affects downstream when it doesn't rain in the Bronx. And we're exploring, I haven't had the time, but our software programmer at the CBC is interested in looking at back data on rainfall and relating that to the 10 years of data that the Bronx River Alliance has and looking at that. Yeah, and we're game to explore what else we could do.
Yeah, thank you for filling that in, especially the part about the lab accreditation. It would be really the main goal is to use the data to push forward protections for the river. And we've learned that because we're not accredited to the Bronx River Alliance, we don't really have a certified laboratory space here at our facility. The data that we collect is great. It's informative, but it cannot be used to influence policy or action to repair infrastructure. So partnering with a laboratory that does have that would actually change that narrative and allow us to do more in terms of actually reducing chronic sewage pollution to the watershed.
Or building a lab for the Bronx River Alliance.
Right, or that too. The conversation can go many different directions. But we're kind of right at the beginning of all of these amazing conversations, which is very exciting. So there's a lot of cool things happening. David, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks. Just to mention the lab, yeah, Anna, we're putting a lot of work into the lab. We're super excited to be able to offer eventually, the capacity to expand testing for partner orgs like Bronx River Alliance. We're again just super excited to be able to be near to that point. So, once we build out that capacity, yeah, would definitely love to continue exploring, this project and others. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we'll, keep on building out that capacity. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Do folks have any other questions or thoughts on this?
I was thinking about the possibility like reaching out to like some of the CUNY schools, like City College, or I think City Tech also has, but City College has the NOAA program, and City Tech also has a program too. So that they involve a lot of GIS and monitoring. So
Yeah. And if there's a partnership with a university or an educational institution, that could be a way of getting students involved in work like this, which we're always getting emails and communications for folks who are looking to get involved with fieldwork and experience with stuff.
capstone projects.
Exactly. So there's definitely a lot of potential for this work. It's very exciting. All right. Do folks have any other thoughts? Cool. We're going to keep it moving. Mount Vernon, I love how spooky this font looks. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Mount Vernon Bronxville sewer issue. This was brought to our attention towards the end of the summer in this year, or in August. We got a communication from a community member living in Mount Vernon who let us know that there's been an ongoing dispute between the municipalities of Bronxville and Mount Vernon. And the claim was that Bronxville had started to redirect some of its wastewater through some of its pipes into Mount Vernon. There's those two municipalities share a border, and so their pipes run from one to the other. And we learned that Mount Vernon has claimed that Bronxville is sending some of its wastewater into the stormwater system, and it's having an impact on flooding as well as pollution going into the river. This individual had actually paid for some water quality tests to be taken at some sites along the Laurel Brook, which is where folks believe a lot of the material is actually making its way out of the system and into the environment. The Laurel Brook runs past Scout Fields, which is on the border of Bronxville, Mount Vernon, and then enters into the Bronx River. When they did testing, they saw elevated levels of bacteria. When we initially went out in the summer, we didn't see anything that was too unusual. This is a look at some of the infrastructure in that location. So there is a sewer line that runs underneath Laurel Brook and eventually makes its way to the Bronx River. So if that is ever releasing material into the brook, that does make its way into the Bronx River, which is a major concern of ours. Again, while we were out there in August, we saw that the infrastructure was located in a place that was what we thought inappropriate, right? It shouldn't be within the channel of a water body. I don't know why anybody would ever build a sewer like that, but that's what was done probably 100 years ago. But we didn't see anything that indicated that liquid had been coming out of any of that infrastructure, and our samples were not very conclusive. So we went back actually in December to see what had happened, if anything had been changed in the space. We were pleasantly surprised to see that some of the manhole structures had been updated to be more secure. So on the left, on the picture on the bottom, you'll see that was what we found back in August. If you leaned your ear close to that, you could hear water gurgling. So not very secure. You can imagine, right, during a rainstorm, the volume of water inside of there could have raised up and spilled out, and that would have been going directly into the environment. They have actually rebuilt those structures. They seem more secure. We couldn't really hear or smell anything. So it seems like they're more tightly sealed and will not release as much material. So that was a good update. We did still see outfalls releasing liquid during dry weather. So on the right is my colleague who was taking a water sample there, and you can see that liquid is coming out of that pipe. It had rained 24 hours prior, but it was dry on the day of the visit. So depending on the location of the watershed, sometimes stormwater does continue to flow through the pipes. In other locations, it's dry. So that's not necessarily an indication that there's a problem, but we grabbed samples from a number of those locations just to test them for fecal bacteria anyway, to be sure. These are the locations where we did take samples. So we grabbed samples from a number of the outfalls along Laurel Brook, and then actually a little bit along the Bronx River as well, to see what was happening in this part of the watershed. A lot of the samples came back with very low bacteria numbers, so nothing really to write home about. But one of the locations did have very elevated levels of bacteria, and that was something that was different between August and in December. So the Vernon Parkway outfall had very high levels of bacteria in December, about 1,500, which is an elevation that would kind of raise a red flag. Other numbers that are a little bit lower could be chalked up to wildlife activity in the vicinity. But with a number like 1,500, now you're starting to, wonder if that's actually sewage coming from the urban landscape. So that was something that we had not seen in August that we did see in December. And, despite the work that had been done in the Laurel Brook along that sewer line, it seems like an issue may still be present. So interesting results and a little bit disappointing to see that number. But, this is at least something to be able to take back to the stakeholders and the residents in the area, that something is still happening in the space. So we don't really know what else has transpired, but we know that we're going to keep in touch with all those folks and see what's happening, because whatever's happening here is going to impact the Bronx River. So we don't want to have this be continuing if there is an actual sewage issue. Juvella or anyone else, do you want to have any thoughts?
I will say the Normandy Terrace outfall, it was spilling both times, and for both results, they yielded really low bacteria, but it was like it's always spilling, whether it was dry or wet, but it's low results. So that makes us think, oh, what's coming into the river is probably some other type of chemicals or like um what was it? Like people watering their lawns, things like that. So, but it's technically still like some sort of illicit discharge because it's constantly spilling.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. We're only testing for fecal bacteria, but that does not mean that other chemicals are not coming out of the pipes. We didn't test for nitrates or phosphates, for example. So that's definitely a good point. There could be still a concern. Anna, I see your hand.
I'm just noticing the difference in the scales. So does this mean that the scout field place was much higher levels in December? Yes.
Yeah, so most of our levels were actually higher. I think Normandy Terrace was the only one that kind of had the same number. We were seeing higher numbers across the board. It was the Vernon Parkway one that was really, really high, but you're right. Even at Scout Field, the number was a little bit higher as well. So that's a good point. Yeah. Other thoughts or questions about this work?
Do you think that the repairs were made in reaction to the kind of legal challenge or? Yeah.
I do. I
Mhm.
do. I know that Save the Sound has got wind of this and they're kind of actively involved in these conversations. I think maybe have even gone out to investigate some of these areas themselves. I think Riverkeeper is also aware of this issue and has been in conversations with some of these folks as well. So it's definitely The profile of this issue has increased a lot. This issue was first raised apparently in 2024. So this has been going on for more than a year now. So there's a lot of folks who are getting involved. And I think that the construction was a result of all the attention it's gotten, for sure. David, I don't know if you're able to come off mute or say anything about if Save the Sound has been involved with this investigation.
Yeah, we also did some kind of initial testing, like what you were highlighting, and yeah, we had some mixed results. Definitely higher than what, we think we should have been seeing, and you're right. I think we even spotted some. I think our tech spotted some discharges when it was like dry weather. So, um, yeah, I think we might need to do some joint sampling and take that back to the lab too at some point. So maybe we could explore that in the next coming months. But um, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good idea. And just to let folks know that we regularly go up to Mount Vernon to check out locations like this where there's outfalls that could be suspicious and see what we find. So we will be going back to this location as well as other locations in the watershed to look for issues and to try to highlight them and stop any illicit discharges from harming the river's ecosystem. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have another update in the next few months. All right. So I'm going to quickly go through some of these results. Unless my computer freezes. Okay, so overall, even including the September numbers where we definitely were in drought conditions, we have seen lower levels of fecal bacteria across the board, except at the Muskrat Cove outfall site in this year in 2025, which is interesting. And so what we're looking at here again is a graph of geometric means across our regular sampling sites. So these are locations that we send volunteers to throughout the sampling season, and every 2 weeks from May through October, we get a fecal bacteria result from these 11 sites. They can vary whether they're very high or very low. The Muskrat Cove outfall site is always very high no matter what the weather is, and it has been that way for a number of years. We are trying to get the city of Yonkers to pay attention to this outfall because we believe that this is an illicit discharge and it could be fixed. So we're trying to get them to prioritize that. There are others across the watershed as well. So this one is always this graph always looks like this, where that outfall sticks up in a weird way. And what's interesting is that the Soundview Park HP009 outfall at the very bottom of the river towards the East River is often elevated, and this year didn't have that many spikes. So even though that is a CSO that does get activated during heavy rains, and we had heavy rains this year, that's not reflected on this graph, which I think is interesting and worth calling out, that we're seeing more issues towards the north than we are towards the south. And I think this continues a trend that we've seen over the last few years. Another interesting thing to point out was that last year's geometric means were much higher than they were this year's, as well as in 2023. So if you take 2024 levels out of the picture, we might be seeing a downward trend across the board in Enterococcus levels. It's obviously too early to say, and we'll need to look at a much longer time scale to see how that looks. But the 2025 numbers were much more similar to the 2023 numbers versus 24. And again, I want to mention that we do the sampling every 2 weeks, and there's a lot of information that we miss during that cadence. And so we're hoping, again, to fill in some of that missing information with our partnership with the Museum of Natural History. But perhaps, there are some changes that are happening at some of these access points along the river. And that would be a good thing. During the drought conditions this year, I didn't call it out on the previous graph, but there were many sites that were within the safe threshold. So unfortunately, it takes drought conditions for that to happen, and we're never going to encourage people to be swimming in the river until we achieve those conditions all year round. But it's interesting to consider that if the CSOs don't get activated and if the stormwater pipes are not spilling any liquid, that the river does flush itself of those pollutants and becomes safer for contact. So it's a vision of the future, right? It's what we're kind of looking towards, what we're fighting towards. Obviously, we're not there yet, but the graph is interesting. I don't really have much else to say than that, but hoping to figure out, why we're seeing these numbers. We're going to do some analysis in the wintertime. It's going to be dive a little deeper into rainfall across the watershed to see what might have been happening to produce this graph. Any reactions to this? Again, I just want to reiterate, we were kind of disappointed to report this earlier, but social media trends have been encouraging people to make more contact with the water, particularly TikTok and Instagram. Young people are sharing that they're swimming in the water and enjoying, diving and bathing within the river itself. And so it's encouraging more people to do that, which is really concerning to us because the river is not safe enough to do that. So that's something that we're going to be paying close attention to in the 2026 season, and finding ways to communicate, creatively to the community why we're not encouraging that behavior, and what folks can do to help us get to a point where we could have a swimmable river. But yeah, we're not happy to see people swimming in the Bronx River, and we're going to be addressing that in 26.
Thanks, Christian. I also just wanted to note on that fact from a practical perspective, we actually did remove a rock dam this year that was creating a little pool at the base of the 182nd Street Dam, which is like one of the most unsafe places to ever swim. So we've observed it on our own as well, and really appreciate that you guys are doing that. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Becca, as well. And I want to also mention, in addition to removing that rock barrier, Parks also removed a number, or actually placed a number of vehicular barriers at different locations along the Bronx River to make it harder for people to get to those access points. So there are now gates that are locked in locations that didn't have those before. And that I think has reduced the amount of activity at those sites. So I appreciate that Parks is taking this issue seriously as well. And looking forward to continuing to collaborate in the next year to help keep the community safe.
Thanks.
Yeah. A little more uplifting. We had our first beaver in a number of years return to the Bronx River in 2025. So RJ is on the call, and RJ, I don't know if you want to quickly give a little recap of your year. This is mostly your work, so.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I had some camera traps set along the Bronx River. In 2024, I did not find any beavers. And then we were all very surprised to find one in May of this year. And then I think I got photos. I got this nice photo in September, and then I got another photo just last month in November as well, of the corner of it. But I have seen, I believe, in August, September, and November, trees that were chewed down in that same location. So when it was, the first picture in May, and then I didn't see a lot of pictures for a while, I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe it had just been passing through, but now it seems more likely that it's staying in the area, which is very exciting because we haven't had a beaver in the river since 2018. So it's been 7 years since Jose and Justin Beaver were living in the river. So it's an exciting development.
Yeah. So obviously folks really love the beaver. It's kind of been an unofficial mascot for the Bronx River for a while. So we're excited that we've got a new one. This one seems to be very active in cutting down trees. And so I think at some point there might be a conversation about what to do along the riverbank to live in harmonious partnership with this beaver, because some of these areas have been restored. And so if it's cutting down native tree saplings, we just want to think about how we can be balancing out the shoreline habitat in that location. And if the beaver begins to build dams, and if those obstruct our ability to have canoe trips, we'll have to think about how we're going to modify or adapt to its presence as we're putting people in canoes on the river. I don't believe that we want to be disturbing the beaver. It's not a conversation that we've actually had internally. But I think that part of our mission is to make this river, a wonderful location for wildlife as well as for humans. So I'm curious to see how we're going to be having conversations about living alongside this new beaver. So stay tuned. I hope that we see a lot more evidence of the beaver in 26, and we'll see what happens. But we take this as a good sign of the river's health, that this animal has been living here continuously since May of this year. I want to see if I can quickly show one other really cool wildlife sighting we had this year. I might not be able to, but let's see if this displays correctly for you all. This was taken in September. Is that video playing?
It is playing, but
that is a shark.
What?
We believe that is a dogfish shark that was seen in September of this year.
You're lying.
Starlight Park. Yeah.
You're totally lying. What? That's
Yeah.
wild.
Where
Based
was
off of
it
its
spotted?
movement. So this is right below the Blue Bridge outside of River House.
Wow.
Juvella took this picture because it was so hard to get an ID. We haven't really publicized this, but that sure
Can you
looks like
share that with me and I can trot over to ichthyology and see if anybody's got, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Well, it reminds me of something that happened when Adam and I, I was at the 125th Street Pier on the Hudson, which is, not the same as the Bronx River, I realized, but talking to these fishermen, and they were like, well, except for him, he likes sharks. Oh, I have a shark. You want to see it? And he takes me over the edge, and he has a shark in the water, like tied up with a rope. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's if it is a dogfish, they're known to inhabit estuaries and
I
brackish
did
habitats.
send the picture to ichthyology, and that's what they said. Smooth dog.
So we'll see, but it definitely wasn't a carp.
Yeah, it was actually a volunteer who pointed it out to us. I was helping one of our other coworkers with the kitchen and pickup of Starlight Park, and she was like, "Did you guys see the shark?" And we're just like, What do you mean a shark?" And it was actually like flapping about a lot, and it was just going in and out of the water. And when I got closer to the banks, I was just like, "That can't be a carp. It's way too big. It's probably like a meter long." And it was pretty active, and I couldn't like try to take a still picture of it. And but yeah, I definitely don't think it was more of a shark than a carp, because someone was, even one of our other coworkers was just like, maybe it's just an eel. It's like, no, it's not an eel.
Yeah, you can see the dorsal
Where
fin.
again?
So this was near 172nd Street and Sheridan. So right outside of the Bronx River Alliance's office. Yeah. Cool stuff.
That's incredible, Christian. You guys should think about setting up like a 24-hour camera at that spot because you have some really cool sightings out there.
That is true. That is the exact same location where the two dolphins were spotted in 2023.
Get a live
And
stream? People love that.
that's the location where the bald eagle was spotted in 2022. So yeah, we should consider, maybe that's something I'll talk to RJ about, because he is, I think, more of an expert in wildlife monitoring. So maybe a conversation to have at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, this I think is a good sign that the river is healthy enough that animals like this are returning to this space. Obviously, we have work to do to keep the river clean and make it cleaner, but the return of wildlife is always a welcome sign. And so that was exciting. That was like a highlight of the fall. I've never seen a live shark in the wild, so that was crazy.
Unfortunately, Christian wasn't in the office that day, and I had to show him the next day. And he was just like, "What? I missed this?"
Yeah, we missed the dolphins too. I wasn't there for that either. But yeah, good stuff, folks. This is what we want to be seeing. So it felt good. Alongside all the problems that we had this year, which we can go over in the review next year, this was, positive things to highlight. So we are winding down. The meeting will be ending soon. We didn't have a lot of room actually for a discussion about next year. I apologize for that. But if folks want to quickly take the next few minutes before you hop off to just talk about your desires or interests for what the eco team can do in 2026, I would love to get folks actually into the river to do some seining and aquatic wildlife surveys. Something that we did as a staff last year and did not get to do it all this year, but really, really want to do with you all next year. And I see a thumbs up from Adam, so you will definitely be invited. We were doing surveys in the freshwater section where we were catching sunfish and catfish and all kinds of cool stuff. And we are permitted to do that from the DEP, or the DEC, I should say. I have a license. So we'd love to get into that as well, just to start the conversation.
I think it would be cool to pair that with some kind of a fisheries outreach event, right? So we're like doing it while also potentially engaging, talking, having a barbecue with a bunch of old folks who also know that part of the water, but from a different perspective, right? And combine those two into some storytelling, whatever. But
yeah,
I want to do that.
Other thoughts? Doesn't have to be about fish. Another
I
idea.
actually want to bring up the idea that we haven't done Project Waste in the last 2 years, and there are little talks of getting it back next year. And I was wondering when we do bring it back, if we bring it back next year, maybe the Eco Team can come out and, help support.
Yeah, so I don't even think folks in this call really know what Project Waste is because it's been so long. But it's a trash removal project that also quantifies the trash to learn more about where the garbage might be coming from. So folks tally all the garbage that gets removed. And we haven't done it because the park where we're doing it has been closed for major construction of the Bronx River Parkway. Last I checked, actually the access is still closed. So maybe we'll move the trash boom, which was catching the garbage, into Shoelace Park, which is about maybe 500 feet south of where it currently is. I have feelings about it, but I think it would work, and still accessible to the public. So something I'm thinking about. Thank you, Jabal. Becca says, hopefully done with construction soon. I will keep my fingers and my toes crossed.
Me too.
Is that 233rd, Becca?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, fingers crossed.
The park looks great. I like what they did, not the retaining wall necessarily, but the park itself looks
Us
beautiful.
too. We're in the same boat there.
So even just to be there, I would love to just explore the space again. Another thing that has been floated is doing a tour of the fish passage at the 182nd Street Dam, kind of an exclusive behind the scenes for the Eco Team with the Parks Department. So there's a locked gate that you have to get through, but it's a very cool spot to be up close to that dam and then to see the fishway where we do a lot of our monitoring. Liam, I know that we're going to be working closely next year to maintain that space. So maybe we can put something on the calendar to bring the team out.
It's funny that you guys said about the retaining wall. I'm currently, well, I'm a civil engineer, so I'm currently my company is contracted to inspect the retaining walls around the city, and there's a few walls around the Bronx River that we've already like skimmed to see how they look and stuff like that. So it's gonna be on the calendar to inspect.
And to know.
Yeah,
It's just generally safety thing every 5 years. So all over the city.
Yeah, you might be hearing from us. Thank you.
Welcome.
I see Adam put in the chat to do some river sediment soil testing and the XRF machine. Yeah, so we have an XRF machine. It can measure heavy metals in soil. The target one is lead and zinc and copper, I think, but other things as well. There are conversations with the Botanical Garden because a lot of that work is also happening there in their space. But most of our samples come from people's garden plots and their raised beds. We haven't done a lot of testing of the sediment itself. So that could definitely be interesting.
I had actually brought this up with Christian before because we have such a major issue with the e-bikes and e-scooters in the river, and the lithium ion battery possibly, not possibly, is degrading in the river. That can definitely be something tested for, possibly through the XRF machine. If it tests for that, I'm not too
Maybe.
sure.
I'm not sure if we have the capacity to test for something that some of the analytes are more expensive to test for. So I think we might need to partner with a bigger facility for that. But I do think it's important that we know what's in that water and the sediment, especially given how many electric batteries are now polluting the river.
Yeah, and how to stop the issue, right? That I feel strongly about that too.
Yeah, I've often thought that we should have some kind of think tank for how we increase our communications. We've been in the news a little bit. I've done interviews about the issue, how it impacts park employees. We've been actually told to not touch those vehicles because of the potential safety risk. So it impacts park staff, it impacts Bronx River Alliance staff, but it's not stopping. And so what can we do to elevate the issue and communicate to the community how terrible the littering pollution of the batteries is? If folks are interested, please feel free to email me. I would love to keep that conversation going.
And I feel like it also requires some social science, like interviews of a different sort, to really understand the like multiple dynamics that are colliding at once that drive that to happen. And yeah, it's so weird and yet so thorny, but also like happens in a bunch of other places. Like this is a scourge of cities everywhere, so there's not everything is a dissertation, but I think this one actually might be.
Yeah, I had a coworker who said that she heard directly from some teenagers that she had seen minutes before throwing a bike into the river. She's like, "Why do you guys do that?" And they're like, "We want to see if the battery will explode." Yeah, just kids who are not engaged in other spaces, looking for entertainment.
Are these bikes are they tractable or like?
They are the city bikes, the e-bike, the Vios, Limes, the Birds, all these like electric scooters and things. They have the geo tracking. Use your credit card to take them out, whatever. But the companies don't seem to engage with us that much.
Right. So there's multiple avenues here. There's
Right. It's like
this is
two
not,
or three sociologies colliding at once. And
but also maybe pressure can be created with the companies. I don't know. There's
We can
ways.
try.
the Lime had this strategy, the flood the zone strategy in San Francisco in the Bay Area, I know. And they did face, I'm vaguely recalling from like the cycling advocacy community, they faced various amounts of pressure to say, like, this is not helpful. Mobility is a real challenge, but you're not doing anything about it. You're causing more problems. And then it would intersect with the Bay Area's unhoused population and other like aspects of, right, these like sociological eruption. People who don't have anything else to do then with things that represent gentrification, like lying around your neighborhood, blocking the sidewalk, you can start to piece the story together of why some kids might want to know why if the battery's going to explode. And anyway, that's where like I do it fascinating.
Yeah, so I think this should be a big topic of discussion for future meeting or a working group. Yeah. I do want to recognize that we are past 7, so if you need to hop off, please feel free. I'll stay on for a few more minutes in case folks have ideas bubbling up. But just want to say thank you for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your attendance and your participation, and looking forward to continuing to engage with you in the future. But I'll stay on for a few minutes if folks want to keep going.
Great to talk to you all. Thank you, Christian. I'll
Yeah,
stay.
thank you. Thank you, Carolyn.
Christian, we're meeting tomorrow. I just wanted to confirm.
We are.
Christian,
Have
why
you
don't you
on
stop
for 9 a.m.
recording?
Oh, Daniel, go ahead.
Why don't you stop recording?
Good point. Thank you.